Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel. If you're listening on the Cycling Dane podcast, today is one of the big ones of the year, the Giro d'Italia preview show. And today, as always, I'm speaking with Patrick Blake of Boundary Cycling to dissect everything Giro d'Italia of 2025. And I mean, Patrick, we might as well start Giro d'Italia, Corsa Rosa. What's your favorite editions in the past and, well, your fond memories of the Giro d'Italia?
Gosh, so many editions. I liked Freedom's edition. That was a really cool comeback story. And actually, we might get the Finesta again this year, which is going to be really cool. Just from like a comeback perspective, that was quite a cool one because it looked like he was down and out in the first week or two, and he really just came back. But also, I loved Carapaz's win. Hindley versus Carapaz in 2022. That was a really cool one. And yeah, I love the jerseys. I know I love the tour, but there's something about like the pink jersey and the Ciclamina jersey. It's the first Grand Tour of the season, so that really makes it quite special. So I really can't wait to see who's going to be pulling on the first pink jersey when we go to Albania. Actually, it starts in Albania. The Giro d'Italia starts in Albania. People might be very confused about that if you haven't watched cycling before, that a race called the Tour of Italy starts in Albania, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the Giro started plenty of weird places, Denmark and Israel, even on the list. But I mean, in terms of Giro editions, like the 2012 edition, I'm still kind of crying over that. One of my favorite riders, Joaquim Rodriguez, losing on the final day in a time trial to Ryder Hazardal. Tom Dumoulin, the incident, everyone remembers that. That was kind of a comeback as well. Nibali, also kind of a comeback, getting back at Chavez. I enjoyed that. And obviously, I am a massive Contador fanboy sometimes when it's not against Andy Schleck. And I really did enjoy his wins in the Giro as well. Like him versus Astana Landa was like peak Landa in my books, just completely destroying his so-called team leader Fabio Auro. That was quite an entertaining addition. And then I mean, seeing Wiggins tried to go for it, but didn't really happen. So, and I mean, Geraint Thomas has been quite entertaining in the recent editions as well. But yeah, last year Tadej Pogačar continuing the Slovenian dominance, absolutely destroying the race. I was even at the Monte Grappa stage, and yeah, he flew past everyone. Quite incredible to say the least, that performance. But anyways, Patrick, I digress. What is the route for the riders in 2025?
Well, as I said earlier, we are starting in Albania. Stage 1 is 160 kilometers from Durrës to Tirana. It's not the easiest stage. It's got over 2,000 meters of climbing in there. We're taking the Glatchen climb and then 2 climbs of the Surel, which is 4.9 kilometers at 5.4%. But the first kilometer is like 8%. It'll be an interesting one. There's certainly going to be a variety of riders who'll be looking to try and take the first Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia. Stage 2, we have a time trial around Tirana. It is 13.7 kilometers. There's a small climb in the middle of there, 1.2 kilometers at 5.7%, but 14 kilometers, you will see some time gaps amongst the GC favourites. It'll be somewhere in the realms of near a minute or so, possibly between a good time trialist versus somebody who's not so good. Stage 3, we go from Vlore to Vlore. We're taking 2 climbs. The last one, the Cafe e Rograze, is 10 kilometers at 7.3%. It's a bit of a weird one to predict. This could be one for a breakaway. It could be one for some GC action, actually, considering 10 kilometers at 7% is no mean feat. But then we have a long descent and then a flat to the finish. So it's a hard one to predict. It might well go to the breakaway if nobody wants to control it. And then we actually have a rest day where everybody hops on a ferry or something and goes from Albania to Italy, where we start off stage 4, 189 kilometers from Alberobello to Lecce. This is a pretty standard sprint day, nothing too much going on here. Stage 5, we go from Kegli, Messa Pica to Matera. The profile is kind of a little bit beguiling. It seems harder than it looks. The organisers seem to suggest this is going to be a reduced bunch sprint. It could very well go that way. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. It'll be a puncher versus sprinters who are hardy to kind of try hang on. Stage 6, we go from Potenza to Napoli. This is 227 kilometers long. I think this is actually the longest stage of the race. We're taking 2 climbs in this day, one a category 2, another category 3, but we are on a net downhill for the day, so this will likely be another sprint. Stage 7, we go from Castel di Sannio to Tagliacozzo. It's 168 kilometers long. A lot of climbing in the day, just shy of 3,500 meters, and the climb up to Tagliacozzo is 12.6 kilometers at 5.3%, with the final 2.6 kilometers averaging 9.1%. I don't know whether the GC riders will control this day just for this climb, which averages kind of a low gradient but has a steeper finish. It might well go to the breakaway instead. Stage 8, we go from Giulianova to Castelraimondo. This looks like a classic breakaway day. There's 4 categorized climbs in here. One's a category 1 right in the middle of the day. It's up and down all day long, 3,777 meters of climbing. So this looks like a breakaway day to me. Stage 9 from Gubbio to Siena. Obviously, if you've watched Strade Bianche, you'll be pretty familiar with this stage because we're going to have some of the Tuscan Strade Bianche in this stage. I'm not sure exactly how many kilometers of gravel there are. Go up into Siena at the end, 700 meters at 9.1%. It's going to be a chaotic day. There's barely a meter of flat road in the final half of this race, so any GC riders who aren't used to one-day racing are going to have a pretty tough time here, in my opinion. Then we have another rest day. Obviously, we had one going from Albania, and now we've got our kind of first kind of proper, I suppose, rest day. Stage 10, we go from Lucca to Pisa. It's a 28.6 kilometer time trial, pretty flat. Therefore, you go look at guys like Josh Tarling to try and take the victory here. Stage 11, we go from Viareggio to Castelnuovo nel Monte. It's 186 kilometers long. We go up in the middle, 14.3 kilometers at 8.6%. But the 2 category 2 climbs finishing off the day are relatively shallow, averaging about 5% each, even though they are 11 and 6.5 kilometers long respectively. So I think this looks a bit more like a breakaway day to me. Stage 12, we go from Modena to Viadana. Again, going to be a battle between the sprinters and the breakaway. We've got quite a bit of climbing in the first half of the stage, but then from a kilometer 100 to 172 is pretty much just flat all the way. So I think you're going to be looking at likely a sprint. Maybe some of the pure sprinters might struggle in the climbs in the first half. Stage 13 from Rovigo to Vicenza is 180 kilometers long. There's not that much climbing in the day, but when it comes, it's really kind of short and sharp. It's a real day for the punchers. The Vicenza climb at the end is a 1.1 kilometers at 7.5%, but inside that last 50 kilometers you have the San Giovanni in Monte, 5 kilometers at 6.7%, the Vicenza climb for the first time, the Arcognano climb, which is 1.8 kilometers at 6.4%. So it's a really brutal puncher day at the end. I'm not sure how it will go, maybe to the breakaway or possibly to a team who brings a puncher who really fancy their chances here. Stage 14 from Treviso to Nova Gocia is 195 kilometers, very much like the previous stage. Apart from you have some less severe climbs towards the end, so I think this is more likely to end in a sprint because it's got a flat finish. Stage 15 from Fiume Vento to Assaggio, it's 219 kilometers long. We take in the Monte Grappa climb. As Scott mentioned this earlier, this is where Tadej Pogacar last year demolished everybody with the double ascent of this. However, we descend off this and go up the Dorio climb, 16.6 kilometers at 5.3%. And then we have this plateau to Assaggio. So bit of a strange stage. I think it will probably go to the breakaway because there's no mountain top finish here, which is kind of a bit of a theme of this Giro, is that so far you will have noticed there's kind of been a lack of GC days, but that is about to be rectified because we go on to stage 16, which is the Piazzolo Sabrenta to the San Valentino stage, 203 kilometers, 4,879 meters of climbing. The final climb is 17.5 kilometers at 6.3%. However, there are a couple of downhill sectors in there, so realistically, the average gradient will be a bit higher than that. And preceding that, we have the Santa Barbara climb, which is 12.8 kilometers at 8.3%. This is going to be arguably one of the most important stages of the whole race for the GC. Stage 17, we go from San Michele alle Agi to Bormio. This is 155 kilometers long. There are 5,722 meters of climbing in this stage, which is absolutely ludicrous. We go with the Passo del Tonale, 15 kilometers at 6%. The Passo del Mortirolo, 12.7 kilometers at 7.6%. Then we have this kind of strange plateau, slightly uphill sort of section at the end to the base of the Passo Stelvio. So again, I'm not sure how this will work. Maybe some satellite riders could instigate an interesting GC battle, but it could also just go to the breakaway as well, quite equally. Stage 18, we have a small break from the GC action. We go from Morbegno to Cesano Maderno. Again, this has got 3 categorized climbs in there, a category 2 and 2 category 3s. And I think this is realistically going to be, again, a battle between hardy sprinters versus a strong breakaway, more than likely. Stage 19, we go from Biella to Campoluc. This takes in 5 categorized climbs. We go through the Croce Serra, the Col Cescor, which is 16 kilometers at 7.5%, the Col San Pantelon, 16 kilometers at 7.3%, the Col de Joux, 15 kilometers at 6.8%, before going finally up the Antagnod, which is about 9 kilometers at 5%, and then we have a slight descent down to Campoluc. So that's a pretty brutal day. 166 kilometers and just shy of 5,000 meters of climbing. And then lastly, for the GC action, stage 20, Vélez to Sestelier, 205 kilometers, taken in the famous Colle della Finestra, which is 18.2 kilometers at 9.2% with a gravel sector at the end, just for good measure. You know, why not? I remember you descend off the bottom of that, and then you have a 16.2 kilometer, 4% climb to round off that day. However, there are rumours that there's snow at the top of there at the moment, so therefore it might be cancelled, which would be a real shame, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it remains in there. And then lastly, stage 21, we have 143 kilometres of the circuit around Roma, which is obviously where Mark Cavendish took that famous victory. So that is the 21 stages of this year's Giro d'Italia.
Thank you, Patrick, for that very brave effort, and we'll give you a bit of a break there for talking through that. Yeah, interesting route, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that gravel stage could have been a lot more gravelly, but yeah, I mean, sometimes when there's too much of a adverse thing in there, the peloton basically just neutralizes it in a way. So yeah, no Montes-Oncolon, unfortunately, but yeah, plenty of interesting climbs. Nevertheless, favorites. We did a video about Primoz Roglic as the favorite. We won't touch on him first, I think. I think we'll pay respects to the defending champion Giro Team Emirates, and no Tadej Pogačar in here. Plenty of exciting riders. Juan Ayuso, Adam Yates, Isaac Del Toro. I mean, Patrick, what's the team, and who do you think they should put their eggs behind?
Yeah, so the team is currently Adam Yates, Juan Ayuso, Isaac Del Toro, Igor Arieta, Rafael Majka, Brandon McNulty, and Jay Vine. Arguably the strongest team in the race, some people might say.
Compare that to Tadej's team last year. It's like night and day.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Tadej was just a one-man band, just on a mission, just with a less good team. But this is a really, really strong squad. I would say that it would be Ayuso they would rally around. He's had a very good year so far in comparison to the previous years where he's been a little bit bogged down with injury. I think that Ayuso has got the strongest time trial of their GC contenders, which will help give them a bit of a head start and allow them to play a bit more of a defensive game inside that final week rather than having to be on the offensive. But I think that the likes of Adam Yates is a very good kind of namestay, steady figure to have in there. A guy who's finished on the podium of the Tour de France. So inside that final, essentially 5 days, Yates will be really important. Del Toro is just, in my opinion, a big wild card. Nobody really knows what he's capable of. He did the Vuelta last year in very much a domestique role, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him this time around. He has a better time trial than most of the climbers, so that puts him a little bit in better favour, I would say. And then UAE Team Emirates do also send riders into the breakaway. So you've got the likes of McNulty and Jay Vine, who are very good in breakaways. So I think that it's a really, really strong team, and I think it's going to be very prevalent across lots of stages.
Juan Ayuso, he's no stranger to success on Italian soil. Former under-23 winner at the Giro, winning Tirreno this year, second last year behind Jonas Vingegaard in that race as well. Won the Trofeo La Guardia. So why not? Why not add this as well? I mean, I desperately want to say Adam Yates because I just feel like the Yates brothers, they are so good climbers. It's just their Palmares is almost needed more. They're both white jersey winners. They're actually both here, not in this room, but for this race. And yeah, Adam Yates, I'm not even sure he's been at the Giro, if I'm honest. Obviously, we know his brother. We'll talk about his brother probably in the outsiders category. Yeah, this is only his second time at the Giro. Last time was in 2017, finishing ninth. Obviously, we've seen him be absolutely incredible since joining UAE. Fourth in the Vuelta a España in 2021. Obviously, he was fourth in Tour de France back in 2016, but that was almost 10 years ago. But the 2023 third place, the UAE didn't win, but that is the highlight of his Grand Tour success. Although I would say last year, he was absolutely incredible for the team, the way that they used him as a strategic pawn. So I think if they have him in that role, then and use Juan Ayuso as the leader, or I mean, Micah's in, probably not Micah, but yeah, I think it's quite interesting. And Isaac Del Toro, I don't know what you do with him. Just kind of a bonus and might pick up the white jersey. Well, actually, no, Juan Ayuso would win the white jersey.
Yeah, I think Ayuso's realistic goal would definitely be to try and get the white jersey as a bit of a minimum in this race. I think that also, I mean, this is going to be a bit of a theme, like, in my opinion, is that although people who have a good time trial in this race will certainly be looked upon more favourably because of their, essentially, the head start they're going to have, this race is going to be decided in those last 5 days. And having a 2 or 3 minute head start in the TT is going to be helpful. But if you crack there, like somebody who's a bad time trialist but a really good climber could very well jump up GC massively in those last 5 days, even though they're like lagging behind 2-3 minutes for most of the race.
Do you think we're going to see a bit of problems? Okay, I know the whole media absolutely maximized the Juan Ayuso refusing to do the turn or whatever in the Tour on, where was it? On the Galibier stage. So, I mean, they're all very good riders, and that's the problem. Too many cooks spoils the broth, or whatever you say in English. So, do you think UAE are going to have a problem here or not? There's no Pogacar, like, maybe Juan Ayuso like, well, I could win the Giro, and then Adam Yates is like, well, I could win the Giro, and then somehow Isaac Del Toro is in the mix as well.
Yeah, I see. I mean, it could very well be a problem.
Astana with Landa and Aru. I mean, that was great washing, so I hope it happens.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? They've got a strong enough team to actually support a dual leadership, I think. When you got the likes of Micah McNulty and Jay Vine to really lead the climbs, I think that you're already in good hands there. I think you're right. Del Toro is a bit of a rogue one. I'm not really sure what to expect from him, but I think that UAE will say that they're going in with a dual leadership with Yates and Ayuso to try and, hedge their bets a little bit and throw people off. But in my opinion, Ayuso will take time on Yates in the time trials and will automatically fall into a bit more of a leadership role. And Yates will just, I think, play a domestique role unless Ayuso has a bad day, in which case Yates will be released to do his own thing.
That's a very fair estimation. Who would you put as leader?
I'd definitely put Ayuso as leader. He's had a very good year. Like you say, he won Tirreno, second in Catalonia. He's got a good TT. And, like I said earlier, I think that the white jersey will be a goal for him in this race. But I think that he'll be eyeing up the victory for sure. I think he's had a consistent set of results. He hasn't been plagued by injury this year like he has done in previous years. And I think that's going to give him quite a lot of confidence going into this race.
Yeah, crazy. This is only going to be his fourth Grand Tour as well. And he's only 22, I think. 22, 23. So yeah, seems like he's been around for a fair bit, but he hasn't. Yeah, we might as well go to the guy who won the Giro d'Italia last time he was here, the one we spoke about, Primoz Roglic, and see if our thoughts have changed a bit since our previous video. That was, well, not that many days ago, but Primoz Roglic, Vuelta a España winner, former Giro d'Italia winner, reluctantly never will win the Tour de France, let's be honest, sorry. Maybe, I mean, he's doing the Giro Tour this year, and yeah, what do you think about, first of all, Roglic's chances this year? We've seen, well, you talked about Catalonia, Ayuso finishing second. The man who beat him on the final stage was Roglic, and he has just got a very good way of getting up there in the mix in these big Grand Tours, except the Tour de France. Do you think he can do it? And what do you think of the team as well? I mean, Dani Martinez, absolutely impressive performance last year in his first season with the team, finishing on the podium in the Giro almost single-handedly because Lipovic was out of the race very quickly.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Like DNF'd after stage 4 or something like that. But anyway, but the Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe team of this year is Primoz Roglic, Dani Martinez, Jai Hindley, Jan Tratnik, Giovanni Aliotti, Frederic Wandal, Giulio Pellizzari, and Nico Denz. Yeah, it's just a super strong team. Like Roglic with Dani Martinez and Jai Hindley is clearly the mountain support. And then you have, Tratnik, Aliotti, Vandal, Pellizzari, Denz. You just got a good mix of rouleurs and guys who can do medium mountains there. It's all in around Roglic. I know that Martinez has podium this race last year, and I know that Hindley has obviously won this race, a few years ago. But realistically, this is Roglic's race to win, I think. They brought him in here to do this. He won the Vuelta last year. He's in this company, in this race. Probably the most experienced guy when it comes to leading and winning Grand Tours compared to any of the other competitors in this race. So I think Roglic is, like we said in our video the other day, I think he's still the favourite. He is pretty consistent when it comes to 3-week races. He's got a good time trial. He's got the ability to gain some bonus seconds on some of the punchy finishes, or just like at the top of little mountain sprints, the Roglification that people talk about, where he sprints for 30 seconds. For me, Roglic is still the favourite for this race. I know that Ayuso is kind of the up-and-coming guy, and he's had a very good year, but at the end of the day, Roglic did beat him fair and square in Volta Catalunya, and I think that Roglic, although I think it will be close, I think that Roglic, in my eyes, just has the edge over Ayuso.
What about his own team? Daniel Martinez and Jai Hindley. I mean, Hindley, a good record in this race, as we know, second in that 2020 edition where he lost out to Theo Gegenhardt, and then winning in 2022. Since then, 9th place in the Vuelta a España, 7th in his first Tour de France, where he also wore the yellow jersey and took a stage win. Last year, not really anywhere, but I mean, I think he had to shift his focus after Roglic crashing out. So you don't think there's going to be any complications within the team, and it is just everyone back Roglic? I mean, Daniel Martinez looked great last year. Big fan.
Yes, it's hard to say because I could say no, there'll be no problems, but realistically, they have just the same rider, I don't know, kind of formation as the UE Team Emirates squad, and that they've got Ayuso, Yates, Del Toro, versus they've got Roglic, Martinez, Hindley. It's sort of the same thing. So maybe they would have a problem, but I think that UE Team Emirates are a bit more open to allowing multiple riders to be a co-leader, whereas I think Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe seem a little bit more, this is our leader and we're going to back him. I mean, Hindley has been good this year, but 8th at the recent Tour of the Alps is okay, but it wasn't setting the world alight. Martinez was just top 10 in Liège, so he's clearly in decent form, but I would say that Roglic is still the safest guy to be going with. Obviously try and keep those other two as close as possible inside the top 10 and use them to try and counter any sort of moves that it's just a man marking. It's like Roglic versus Ayuso, Martinez versus Del Toro, Hindley versus Yates, and it's just like a mano a mano sort of situation. That would actually be quite interesting to see, because I think these two teams are very equally matched.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. But I mean, in terms of other teams, surprising amount of former winners and former podium finishers in this race. We've already talked about Roglic. I mean, Adam Yates, and Ayuso have finished on Grand Tour podiums, granted not in this one. Richard Carapaz, do we want to go there? I mean, former winner of the race in 2019, finished on the podium when Jai Hindley won it. Form this year, not the best. I mean, winner of the polka dot jersey last year in the Tour de France, 10th in the Vuelta a Catalunya last time. So, I mean, Richard Carapaz, I almost don't want to hear your thoughts because I want to love him in the outsiders category after this. But yeah, just not really delivered. But go on then. Carapaz. Reluctantly, he's in the favorites. Sorry, Visma Lease Bike, we are getting to you.
I probably wouldn't put him in the favourites, but well, here he is. I
He
mean,
made it because I made a mistake.
I mean, I talked about Roglic and his experience of leading Grand Tours and being up there. I mean, Carapaz is just the same. Over the years, he's been up there in winning scenarios. He's been up there on the podium of Grand Tours and the Tour de France, the Giro d'Italia when he won it, and also the Giro d'Italia where Hindley just snatched it from him as well. So Carapaz is very adept at these Grand Tour scenarios, and like I mentioned earlier, people might focus a lot on the time trials, but this is going to be a race decided in those big mountain stages with 5,000 meters of climbing. And although there aren't that many like altitude meters where we're over 2,000 meters, which would probably be a little bit favorable to Carapaz, considering he's from Ecuador and he's grown up with that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a name that you have to consider in here because of his pedigree in Grand Tour racing.
Yeah, last year, a very good Tour de France, getting a stage win and the polka dot jersey and making Jonathan Vaughters a bit happier after that very expensive signing. We'll see what he can do, but yeah, it's not that 2020 to 2022 Carapaz, but maybe we'll see some sort of like that. He had an impressive record, third in the Tour de France. Obviously, like you said, the Vuelta a España also finishing second to Roglic, and also that Giro to Jade Hindley. But I mean, Patrick, coming to Team Visma Lease bike, they had a bit of an unlucky Giro d'Italia last year. Plenty of crashes. Although Coy did win, he's back here as well. But that's not really who we're talking about because we're still in the favorites category. Simon Yates, a man who was absolutely electric in the 2018 Giro d'Italia in the first part. I think he won 3 stages and then he kind of cracked after the Montezoncolo, and then and he's been on the podium since then in 2021. But looking at Simon Yates' chances and also the rest of this Melissa bike, touch on Olaf Koy. We'll do that later in the sprinter section. But what do you think of the GC part of this Melissa bike?
Yeah, I think it's decent, to be honest. They've got a sort of a half and half team of sprinters and GC riders. Simon Yates will obviously be their main man. This year, he hasn't been spectacular, so I would say 14th in Tirreno Adriatico and 9th in Volta Catalunya. It's solid and steady. Does it scream at me that he's going to be contending for the victory? Not really, but he's also a rider who over the years has just comes a bit out of nowhere. I think especially back to the 2023 Tour de France where he finished in, I think it was 4th place that he finished. And that sort of came a little bit out of nowhere. And I think that Yates is just one of these seasoned GC riders who knows how to ride a Grand Tour, especially one like the Giro. Like you say, he's done very well here in the past. So I don't see a reason why Yates couldn't pull a big performance out of the bag here, even if the results this year haven't been necessarily indicative of him being in absolutely flying form. To back him up, there's also Kelderman, Kruijswijk, Bart Lemon, and however good Wout van Aert is essentially in the mountains. He's been very good in the past. We're not quite sure where he is at the moment, let's face it. So it's a decent amount of mountain support. And then, in the sprints, you've obviously got Wout van Aert's a bit of in both feet in both camps. Affini, Dylan Van Baal, and then Olaf Koy. So it'll be like Van Baal, or it'll be like Lemon, Van Baal, Affini, Wout, and Koy. So it's actually quite a good split team, I think.
Yeah, well, actually, just when you're reading that out, the history with the Giro and this team, I mean, Kelderman, former podium finisher, Steven Kruijswijk, we saw him absolutely dominant in that. Was it the Chavez Nibali one in 2000? Was it 16? Yeah, and then he kind of had a very disastrous crash on a downhill and kind of went downhill from there. So, I mean, in terms of that, is Simon Yates even the leader here for the mountains?
Yeah, I think he should be, but it wouldn't surprise me to see it not just being a team surrounded, where we're all going to be just surrounding Yates the whole time. I think that you will see riders going into the breakaway quite a bit as well. I think that you're not just going to see Visma Lease bike just, unless Yates is in absolutely outstanding form, which he might well be. We don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody like Kelderman being put into the break to try and get, his first Grand Tour stage victory, because Kelderman has been on decent form as well this year, and I think that quite a few of the stages suit his characteristics, so it wouldn't surprise me to see them putting riders in the breakaway as well. So Visma Lease bike pretty much could be prevalent in sprints, breakaways, and in the GC, yeah, I think.
What would they be satisfied with Simon Yates? Last year we saw him in the Tour. He wasn't really good. Well, he wasn't going for GC. He was going for breakaways quite a lot. We saw him and Carapaz kind of duking it out on many mountaintops or close to the mountaintops. What's success for Simon Yates? Obviously, I think he's scheduled to be helping Jonas as well. That was kind of what we thought he was brought in for, like in the way of Adam Yates with Tadej Pogačar. But what's the success for him? And what's success for Visma Lease bike in the mountains? Because they were nowhere last year, nowhere in the mountains, nowhere anywhere. So
yeah, because Brooks DNF'd last year.
Yeah, exactly. He looked like he was going to get the white jersey and maybe top 5, but yeah.
I think realistically a top 5 would be a good target for them. There is some pretty stiff competition here, but Yates is in that folly of riders who are capable of being inside the top 5, depending on how they go on a day-to-day basis. And actually, Simon Yates has got a decent time trial, probably better than some of the pure climbers in this race, so he'll probably get a little bit of a head start on some of those. And in the mountains, just in general, or as a team on the whole, I think they'd at least be wanting a couple of stage wins along the way, maybe like 2 or 3, and probably targeting the Ciclamina jersey as well with Olav Koy. I think that would be ultimately a very successful Giro d'Italia.
I mean, you're saying he's good in a time trial. He actually won stage 2. I was thinking he did back in 2022, the one where we had Mathieu van der Poel kind of battling to keep it on. And I mean, yeah, you don't really think of that, but obviously he's had a number of successes in the Giro, and it's 6 stage wins. So, I mean, if he adds to those 6 stage, okay, 3 of them was in the 2018 one, but for him, surely like blue jersey and 3 stage wins, a Carapaz-esque Vuelta a España a few years ago, wouldn't that be fairly good?
Yeah, I think I would say that would mean more, getting the mountains jersey and 3 stage wins. It's just where their allegiances lie. This is a team which has a decent amount of mountain support, and I don't think that it's by the face of the team here that they've got lined up, it looks like they're having a bit of a GC bid here, and they're going to go in with that as the main objective, because you wouldn't be sending a mountain support for Yates just for him to go stage hunting. That just doesn't really make that much sense. So it's going to be a team focused around trying to get a good GC, and if things go wrong for whatever reason, then you'll probably go into the breakaway and try win that way, which would be equally as good.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, it's definitely not set up for a lone breakaway rider. Do you think Wout is going to go for the points classification, or is it going to be him trying to help either side of the team, kind of the sprint and the climbing?
I think it will be the latter. I think he's going to be more in a helping role, but there will be stages where Olav Koy won't be able to survive and Wout will have his opportunity. I think actually stage 1, namely, I think that it's on the cusp of what I think Koy is capable of. So I would say that, although Koy was very good in Tirreno at climbing, actually, the stage which he won there, he was very good. I think that Wout will have his sprinting opportunities when Koy can't make it, essentially. And other than that, he will just be in a supporting role for leading out Koy for his sprints and also for helping Simon Yates.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. But I mean, we might as well move to another team, and they finished on the podium last year with Geraint Thomas. That is, of course, Ineos Grenadiers. And I mean, Patrick, this team has quite a rich history with the race. They're returning with the last winner of the race, Egan Bernal, in 2021. Also, the last time he was here. What do you think of their team and their chances, and potentially Egan Bernal being back to winning ways, potentially?
It's a decent squad, actually. It's very focused around the GC, with Bernal and Arensman heading up the team alongside Castroviejo, Lucas Hamilton, Brandon Rivera-Smith, Kim Heiduck, Josh Tarling, and Ben Turner. I like it as a team. I think, it's very GC focused with Bernal and Arensman. They are kind of a bit of a yin and yang style of GC approach, which is that Bernal is the lesser time trialist, probably better climber, whereas Arensman is the better time trialist and probably comparatively less good climber. compared to Bernal. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that, because Ineos do tend to get multiple people inside the top 10. We've seen that for in quite a few Grand Tours. I remember 2023 when they had De Plus, Arensman and G all inside the top 10. So it wouldn't surprise me to see both of them inside the top 10. And outside of that, I mean, Tarling will be going for the TTs, which all being well, and, he wasn't quite on it last year for whatever reason, but he is, I would say, overwhelmingly the best time trialist in this race. And I think that Ineos will be looking to try and pick up a couple of stage wins with him in the time trials. I think that's a pretty realistic ambition, and trying to get a top 5 in GC with Bernal or Arensman. I don't know how Bernal is really going. Obviously, he had that bad crash in Classica Cayenne. He was looking pretty good in the season up until then. He has done Volta Catalunya since then, where he finished in 7th in GC. Yeah, that's a good performance, actually. Especially that largely came on the La Molina climb. That's where that was kind of decided a bit. So, and Bernal's good in bad weather as well. He's pretty adept at these cold conditions. So if it was bad weather, I think he'd be fine. So I am feeling kind of boisterous. I think Bernal's definitely still on a comeback, but that gives him a completely unknown factor in this race. And I think he could surprise some people.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenally strong rider, we know, before the Colombia crash. And then he looked very strong in the Classica Cayenne as well before the crash. He was closing down moves left, right, and center, and he's very good on the gravel. We've seen him in Strada Bianca, former mountain biker as well. A double Colombian champion, whatever that means, because the time trial, obviously, the time trial, he looked very good though in the road race, and he had Brenda Rivera Smith there. But again, it wasn't the highest. It's not the Colombian National Championships of 5 years ago. That's what I'm trying to say. But still, him getting the win was just good for his confidence as well. And maybe it could have been there in Classica Cayenne. He was more of an marking duties. But that aside, Ironsman, he really has looked good in the last few years. Like you said, the top 6, top 5. Is he the future of Ineos, or are they still kind of backing Bernal in this situation? I'm just thinking, we're on a mountain stage. Both of them, who do you go for? Do you go for Ironsman, or do you go for Bernal when UAE or whoever, Red Bull, Bora Hansgrohe, are really putting the hammer down?
It just depends, really, I suppose, on the day-to-day form, doesn't it? Like, in my eyes, Arensman will take like a couple of minutes on Bernal in the time trials, so he'll go into those last few stages further up in GC, let's say, as long as he remains on the same time as Bernal in the Strada Bianchi stage, which I think Bernal will probably fare better on, just as a better kind of one-day racer. So let's say, in theory, Arensman takes a bit more time into the final 5 stages. They'll probably ride for him to begin with, just because he's further up in GC and he's got a more realistic chance of finishing higher. But if he's struggling, or if Bernal's on a good day, then I don't think they will make Bernal wait for him. I think they'll let Bernal, as long as he's within touching distance, to follow the moves. I think they'll try and go with Arensman as long as they can, but they're not just going to use Bernal as a domestique. I don't think that's going to be the case.
He would be a very expensive domestique if they were going to do that. But I mean, speaking of expensive Ineos Grenadiers riders, former now, Q36.5, Tom Pidcock, they got a wild card to this. He's been looking very good this year. As we know, we saw the Al Ula Tour in Saudi Arabia. He won that. He finished on the podium in the Vuelta a Andalucía, taking a stage win along the way as well. And recently in the Ardennes Classics, even got third in Flèche Wallonne and a top 10 in Amstel Gold and Liège, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, phenomenally strong. First ever Giro d'Italia. The team obviously are going to be backing him. What do you think of Tom Pidcock and Q36.5's chances in this race? I know we're not classing him as a favorite. We're just putting him in this void between favorites and outsiders. Don't come at us, comments.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's the GC Pidcock discussion once again of, can he do a GC job? I think probably not. He would be better, I think, just going for stages. That seems to just be what he's just better at naturally, and there's plenty of stages which suit him, and I won't go through like all of them, but even like the opening stage, it's pretty tough, and it comes down to a bit of a sprint, and they can really set the pace on some of those climbs. I think that Pidcock could have a good shot of trying to take the Maglia Rosa. The Strada Bianchi stage, though, there's that there was one stage which is really flat. I think it's in like the second week where it's like flat and it's just like a 1K, 1.5K, 7% climb at the end. That's really suited to him. I could see Q36.5 pacing all day just to try and set him up for that. And generally just quite a lot of big mountain stages where they have a big mountain in the middle and then some softer climbs towards the end, and I think that really suits Pidcock as opposed to hard mountaintop finishes, of which there aren't too many. So I think that Pidcock will actually have a pretty good time if he gets in the breakaways, which is possible because he will lose time in the time trials. As long as he, if he could tactically lose time on some of the other sprint days or days he's not going to be as competitive, he could be really dangerous for going for like the mountains classification, for getting stage wins, and the rest of the team with Alsparan, Brambilla, Mark Donovan, who's been really integral actually to some of the Pidcock successes this year. Friesen, Damien Housen, Moschetti as their sprinter, and then Zukowski as well. There's some decent climbers in there to help support Pidcock in some of those breakaway ventures. So as a stage hunter, I think he's got a great chance, but as a GC prospect, probably not. But I do fear that he might try hang on to it because it's very back heavy and he might be lured into this like false sense of security, like, oh, I'm actually in the top 10 of GC, let's try and hang on to this, and then gets no stage wins, gets dropped in those last 5 days, ends up 17th in GC with a rather unimpressive Giro. So I really hope he just goes for stages.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the Richard Carapaz Vuelta a España that I mentioned before, when I think it was the last Vuelta before he left Ineos, like very aggressive 3-stage victories and getting the polka dot jersey. But I don't know if Pidcock can, maybe not the similar stages, but like you could definitely be up there in many of the breakaway stages. And I mean, last year, because of UAE, there was hardly any breakaway winners and Tadej Pogačar was sweeping up stages left, right and center. But maybe this year there will be a bit more stages left over. Yeah, so we're basically saying the same. He shouldn't be going for GC. He should try and get at a lot of stages because he has that punch. He's a great Amstel Gold rider. He's a former Strade Bianche winner on the podium this year. Obviously, the Strade stage is nowhere near as hard as the real Strade Bianche, which is a bit unfortunate for him. But yeah, I think he could definitely pull something out here if he really pushes for it. Yeah, you were saying his GC aspirations, that has been talked about a lot. I mean, the British press love to tout him as the next Tour de France, or used to the next Tour de France winner. I mean, he's a very good one-day racer, as we know, and he's a phenomenal mountain biker and good in cyclocross. But in terms of those Grand Tours, it's just not there when you look at it clean cut. His best performance, obviously, he's been riding part of Ineos Grenadiers, so there's always other riders potentially in kind of having their opportunity. So 2021, his Neo Pro season, Vuelta a España, obviously nothing there, but Tour de France the next year in 2022, finishes 16th overall. That's also where we remember him winning that iconic Alpe d'Huez stage. 2023, that's where he was looking more like he was searching for it, and him and Carlos Rodriguez, but ends up 13th, and then last year DNF. So he's a fantastic bike handler, fantastic rider, but there is just not that evidence that he should be going for that. He should be going for stages, I think, and being part of Q36 for them as well. Finishing 8th in the Giro d'Italia, I can't even name who was 8th last year or the year before, but winning 3 stages, that would make a big media splash for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what they'll be hoping for as well. Just like you say, from a media perspective and the coverage you get in the press, you're going to get a lot more of that by fighting for stage victories and putting on a bit of a show as compared to hanging on to the coattails of a GC fight, and all the TV coverage you're getting is of you being dropped from a GC group. So I think I know which one I'd rather be having as a team manager.
Yeah, I'll never forget Alexander Vinokurov. I've said this so many times, but he was talking to Danish press after Jakob Fuglsang didn't win a sprint against Dan Martin in the Tour. And he said, well, aren't you happy that he's going to be finishing top 10 in the Tour at least? And he said next year, nobody will remember who is in the top 10, but everyone remembers the stage winner. So he's a team manager. But that aside, Tom Pidcock and Vinokurov aside, outsiders, Patrick, we haven't included the white jersey of Tiberi in the favorites. Don't know if you want to change that. But Mikel Landa as well looked very good in the Tour de France last year, top 5 there. Who else is kind of are you thinking about in this outsiders category that could potentially get inside the top 5, top 10?
Derek G would certainly be one to look for. Top 10 in his Tour de France debut last year. And that's the Tour de France. I've no offense to Giro, but the Tour's a different breed. And yeah, I think Derek G's got a really good team around him here. So I think he's definitely got a good chance. And obviously, we all remember when Derek G won on a second placed sprint. So I think he's got a pretty good history of this race. Ciccone as well, for sure. One that I'm looking at. He seems to be getting better with his time trialing, and Tour of the Alps, he won that first stage, and people might be screaming at him to go for stage wins, a bit like Pidcock, but I do think that Ciccone will be here on a GC hunting mission. That's what he tried to do at the Tour last year, I think it was, and it didn't end up working out. I think he was like just outside the top 10.
David Gaudu, we haven't mentioned, debutant in the Giro d'Italia.
Yeah,
and
true.
Maybe he's hoping for that Pinot Giro magic, where he had a very good run in the Giro. Romain Bardet as well, we haven't mentioned him. This will be his, I presume, last Grand Tour?
He isn't down for the Tour de France at the moment. He's down for the Dauphiné, but not for Tour. But I'd be kind of surprised if he wasn't put down for the Tour.
Who else are we thinking of? I mean, touching on the Derek G thing, yeah, I completely forgot his run of second places. That was a great performance. But like in the team, Jakob Fuglsang, he's kind of been shepherding him around and sharing his experience. Heard that on a podcast with Fuglsang. And you also have Jan Hurt, who is very strong. I'm surprised he was let go from Soudal Quickstep. So, I mean, Derek G, as you said, finishing inside the top 10 in the Tour could translate to a top 5. So maybe we should have even bumped him into the favourites category.
Maybe. I can't quite put him on the same plane as Roglic and Ayuso.
Yeah, fair enough.
Doesn't quite sit right. But I'd also say Michael Storer, the winner of the Tour of the Alps. I mean, he was incredible in that race. He put minutes into the rest of his competitors there, some of whom aren't here in this race. I mean, Storer was just on a different level to the competition there, and if he carries that into this race, he's going to be super good. His only problem is that there is a lack of mountaintop finishes for him to really use his talents, and the time trialing isn't his strength, so he's going to lose some time there. He's going to have to make it into that third week and really hope that Tour of the Alps form is still there at that point. Piganzoli, possibly, for Team Polti Visit Malta. He's certainly one to think about for the top 10. Tiberi, yes. I reckon he's one for the top 10. He DNF'd Tour of the Alps, though, so I'm not quite sure why that was the case, but he's certainly one to think about. Bilbao as well. And Caruso actually had quite a good Tour of the Alps. A guy who has finished on the podium of this race. This guy is actually pretty good. Even if he is like 37 years old, he's still kind of churns out these results. That's all I'm really expecting.
Right. Anyways, sprinters, you kind of mentioned earlier that the field isn't that deep in terms of sprinters. I mean, you already mentioned Wout van Aert, Olaf Koy. They're going to be a double act like we've seen in the Tour of Britain. We've also got Mats Pedersen that you mentioned earlier as well. He's going to be able to do anything against some of the fastest sprinters. We've seen him beaten quite comfortably by Olaf Koy in Paris-Nice. Caden Groves as well. But I mean, Patrick, who are you kind of looking towards in terms of the sprints in general?
I think I've kind of got them categorized as Koy, Groves, and Pedersen as the kind of top tier guys in this race. Pedersen probably not as an out-and-out sprinter, but he is very fast. You'd say that Groves might have the advantage because he's got pretty much most of his team dedicated to a lead-out train, whereas Koy has got like half a team and Pedersen has most of the team as well. He's got like Vatsek, Mosca, Conrad, Hola, Kirsch. Like, is another strong lead out, but probably lacks the top end speed as Pedersen. He'll be looking for those more attritional days. So outside of those three, there's Govakar for Bahrain Victorious. There's Sam Bennett of Decathlon AG2R, Milan Fleta of Cofidis, who won a stage of the Vuelta Algarve and the Classica Almeria earlier this year. Gerber Tayson of Intermarché. Israel Premier Tech don't really have somebody. Well, Corbin Strong, but he'll be looking for the more attritional days. Moschetti for Q36.5 is actually a very good sprinter. He won a stage in the Alula Tour, so he's one to think about. Alois / Baronexia for Movistar, whoever they decide to go with, Paul Magnier or Luke Lamperty, whoever Soudal Quickstep decide to go with, Lonardi of Polti Visit Cometa. No, so that's not right. Polti Visit Malta, not Visit Cometa. That doesn't make sense at all. Casper Van Uden of Picnic Postenel. We already mentioned Coy. Rick Ploymers or Michael Zylard for Tudor Pro Cycling. Zylard's a bit more of a flat sprinter. Ploymers is more of the attritional sprinter. And Max Canter for XCS Astana. I think that pretty much covers everybody.
But we'll move on to our favorite part of the show, the predictions. And here, obviously, it's going to be a bit fun because it's not just about the podium, it's also about all the jerseys. So since we've been talking about sprinters, we might as well start with, well, it doesn't have to be a sprinter, but who do you think is going to win the most stages?
I've actually been rethinking this. I think he'll be a sprinter.
So it's not like Tadej Pogačar where he took 6 stages.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about like Roglic. Like if he swept up those last mountain stages, that's 3, and then he'd only have to win 1 more and get 4. And I'm thinking that 4 stage wins is sort of the benchmark I'm going for. But I do think that Coy will win quite a bit. I think he is probably the fastest sprinter in this race. So I'm going to go with Olav Coy to win 4 stages.
No Mads Pedersen, he doesn't tempt you?
I think Pedersen will be up there. I just think that in terms of actual, like, Pedersen will be more consistent, but will just be beaten on some sprints, like the flatter sprints, than by Olav Coy, who's more of a pure sprinter.
Yeah, I'm torn whether we're going to see Simon Yates or Tom Pidcock maybe ripping it up in the breakaways. But I'm going to go for Roglic and say 3 stage wins with him. Maybe we'll see the Roglification, as you and Ewan love to say. Okay, then. White jersey. Last year we saw Antonio Tiberi win that. I think he can still win it this year, the Italian sniper. But obviously we have Giulio Pilizzari in here. We have Juan Ayuso. So there's a lot of riders in that category. And who do you think is going to win?
I think Juan Ayuso, for sure. By kind of default, I think he'll probably be the best. I mean, yeah, there are others, but I think Ayuso is kind of obviously the best one, so I'm going to go with him.
I was thinking about Roglic. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think, I mean, Maglia, well, he's not going to do it all the way to finish. We forgot to mention Luke Lamperty as well well, I think you did. Johannes Stouten-Mitten still qualifies for this as well. I don't think the Norwegian's going to do it. I think, isn't he an under-23 Giro d'Italia winner as well? So is Juan Ayuso, and yeah, so is Tom Pidcock. But I'll go for, well, you didn't go for Max Poole. Oh my goodness. Good luck getting back into Yorkshire. Isaac Del Toro as well. That would have been a good shout, but Juan Ayuso looks like he is going to be the leader. I'll say Pilizzari, just to keep it a bit different. Mountains jersey. Who won it last year? Tadej Pogačar? He seemed to win everything last year.
Yeah, Pogačar won last year just because he won so many mountaintop finishes. But there aren't as many mountaintop finishes this year. I think it will actually go to a breakaway rider, so I'm going to go with Bardet.
Oh, that's a good shout. Has he won it in the past?
No.
Thibaut Pinot, yeah. Not all French riders are the same.
Yeah, last year I think he'll go for a break.
I think I'm going to be optimistic and say that, no, but he's not going to do it, is he? I was going to think Tom Pidcock, but I can't see him going for it. I think he's going to win some stages, maybe 2, but a campaign like this, probably not. Okay, I'm going to go Simon Yates. I'm not sure if they've actually won the polka dot jersey between the 2 of them, Adam Yates and Simon. Well, next coming to the points classification, who do you think is going to take that?
I think it'll be, even though I think that Coy will win more stages, I think that Pedersen will win the Ciclamino jersey based upon his versatility, getting into breakaways, the intermediate sprints, that sort of stuff. I think that Pedersen might be able to chip away a bit more at it.
I kind of wanted Wout van Aert to go for this because we saw him almost win the points classification in the Vuelta, and then if he did it here, he would have had the full set. I can't think of a rider that has taken the full set since Mark Cavendish, because I don't think Peter Sagan actually did it. I think he missed out the Vuelta. But I mean, I am gonna go for Wout van Aert. I know he's probably not gonna do it because we were talking about he's gonna be the link between, or like the common rider between the two teams. So yeah. Anyways, your podium for 2025, the Giro d'Italia. How accurate are you gonna get this? Is it gonna be another Slovenian win, third year in the row?
Yeah. For me, the hard part is picking who's going to finish third. I've got my second and first kind of lined up. I'm trying to think if it's going to be a time trialist GC rider who's going to hang on and limit his losses, or whether it's going to be a climber who's going to really kind of come storming up the ranks in the last kind of handful of days. So I'm going to go with third place, Mikel Landa, second place, Juan Ayuso, and first place, Primoz Roglic.
Yeah. What happens with Adam Yates?
Well, I don't know. He's just going to domestique and finish sixth or something.
Well, okay, I'm gonna go a bit different. Well, I said in our other video that I thought Roglic was gonna miss out and finish fourth, but I also said he was gonna win the most stages. So the consistency, don't read into that. In third place, who's gonna be third place? I kind of want to say Romain Bardet just for the sake of it, since it looks like it's going to be his last, yeah. I'm going to go for Derek G. Screw it. Third place, Egan Bernal. Second place, Simon Yates. And the winner of the 2025 Giro d'Italia, none other than Adam Yates.
And that's just not computing in my head.
But it could happen. What if he crashes out?
A lot of things could happen. Like this, a lot of things are going to need to happen for that to happen. But you know what? It could well do.
Roglic crashes. Well, it doesn't crash, but wins the 3 stages somehow. But still finishes fourth. But Adam Yates is on like 2023 Adam Yates form, and there's just no Tadej Pogačar, and he wins the whole thing. I mean, the way that the UAE Team Emirates riders have been riding this year, they're winning left, right, and center. They're doing 1-2 finishes, not without Tadej Pogačar being there. So
it's true. Yeah, it's true. They are very good.
Anyways, we might as well come to our bonus round as well, and this is going to be where will Nairo Quintana finish in this year's Tour de France?
I'll say 17th.
17th. Okay, that's
they're like breakaway up and down.
I think they're going to be working for Aina Rubio, so I think he's going to be 35th.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but you forget that Nairo Quintana is innately selfish.
That is very true.
He doesn't care about Aina Rubio and his beliefs. And
Who is this peasant on my team?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. He probably will ride it for his own chances. Probably is a bit annoyed that Egan Bernal stole his thunder, but anyway. With that, that's basically it for our Giro d'Italia preview of 2025. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment down below what you thought of our predictions or anything else. And make sure to check out Patrick's own channel, I'll Do Cycling, which is in the description below. And of course, we have our podcast as well on Spotify. We will be doing recap race analysis as well of the Giro, so be sure to check that out as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.